It is very true. Change is everywhere. We're talking about new priorities, new systems, new expectations. But here's the challenge. Change being announced doesn't mean that change has been adapted. Leaders who drive change well, we understand that transformation is not just about direction, it's about trust, it's about listening, it's about clarity. And today, we're talking about what it takes to really mobilize people through change. Come on, let's get this conversation started. Welcome to Transformation Station Leadership Podcast, where leadership, resilience, mindset, and transformation come together to help you and I grow from the inside out. I'm your host, Adrienne Benton, and I'm so glad that you have chosen to spend this time with me. You know, I've been thinking change is one of the few constraints in leadership. We're talking about organizations evolving and teams shifting and priorities changing. I mean, think about it. As leaders, we're often responsible for guiding people forward, even when we don't have all the answers. Well, joining me today is Brandon, and together we're exploring the topic driving change. We'll talk about the difference between announcing change and mobilizing people through it, and how leaders can respond to resistance, and why trust matters when outcomes are uncertain. You know what? It's time for you to meet Brandon. Brandon, welcome to Transformation Station Leadership Podcast. We're excited to have you with us today.
I'm psyched to be here. It's going to be fun to talk about change.
Absolutely. Well, listen. Okay. So here's some more of my musings, right? Change is rarely just about practice. I've seen over the years in office spaces with organizations that when change happens, it's not just the change itself. It definitely has an impact, right? Even if it's small, it affects the people, it affects the routines of the team. It sometimes affects people's confidence and or self-control. So I want to start off by asking you this question. Change, it's constant, but successful change is not. So, what do you believe separates leaders who simply announce change from leaders who actually mobilize people through it?
Yeah. And I really like what you said about change is constant because
Mhm.
it's just part of life. And it's something that I think all of us really have to embrace because that's
Mhm.
just how life operates.
Mhm.
And so I think the first thing we need to do is really accept that change is ever present and it's
Mm,
just part of life. Um,
mhm,
in terms of what separates leaders um, who simply announce change from those who kind of mobilize through it,
mhm,
I worked in higher ed for 20 years and
mhm,
public education. And that was one area that I think I see a lot of leaders struggle with. And I think that there is a very simple solution. And a lot of times when I was in higher ed, a lot of folks would say, oh, it's change. Change is just hard. It's just something we have to deal with. And the reality is that change is hard if it's not done well. And I think that is the key. And leaders who do it well, I think there are a few steps to doing change well. The
mm,
first one is to identify the problems because usually you're changing something because there's a problem that needs solving.
mhm,
And
mhm,
and the first step is to identify the problem. But where a lot of people go wrong, and especially leaders, is that they feel like they know the problem and they also know the solution. And
mercy.
and approaching it that way and saying, hey, this is the problem, this is the solution, a lot of people are going to freak out because a couple of reasons. One
Mhm,
is that the problem as they define it is not the problem that everybody defines. So
ooh,
step one is getting together with all of the people who are impacted by this problem in any way and getting them to agree on what is the definition of the problem. Because I might say this is the problem, and somebody at the ground level might say, no, 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 this is the problem. Someone in the middle might say, no, actually, it's more this. And then as you get together and talk and you come up with the definition of the problem, once everybody agrees on the problem, then solving that becomes a lot easier. And then people embrace the change because they all agree that the problem is a problem. And so, of course, we all want to solve it. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's one of the big difference. Leaders who come in and just say, here's the problem and this is the solution are always going to hit resistance and it's going to create frustration. So
Mm-hmm.
step one, identify the problem and get everybody to agree on the problem.
I love that. So, leaders, you're listening right now to Brandon. He's giving us a masterclass right here. I want you to go ahead and tell us in the comment section not only where you're watching or listening from, but also share with us like what's resonating with what Brandon just shared. You know, Brandon, as you were talking, I was thinking to myself about this leadership principle, which I think goes perfectly in alignment with what you said. Change becomes movement when people understand both the purpose and their place in it. And, you know, as I've seen over the years where when a leader comes in and says, "This is what we're doing, we're making this change," and all people know is that they have to just make the change, you lose trust, you lose people having that team consensus, right? Feeling valued, and then they just become, well, you know what? My opinion doesn't matter. Let me just go ahead and do what I'm being told. And I've seen even where the routines that the team normally has, it gets out of whack, right? And instead of people coming in with confidence, they come in with uncertainty, just kind of trying to figure it out in the day to day, and that's unsustainable. So I want to ask you this question: what's one of the biggest challenges one of the biggest challenges that leaders face is resistance. So, how can a leader determine whether resistance is something to overcome or valuable feedback that they need to listen to?
Yeah, so this is me speaking, but I feel like if there's resistance, a lot of times that's a sign that you're not fully understanding the challenges and the problem from the perspective of those who are resisting. So
Mm,
I think that's a great flag to say, wait a second, maybe there's something I'm missing. Have I really sat down and and worked with these folks to understand the problem from their perspective? Because if I haven't, they're going to continue to resist as long as I continue to make the change because they don't feel like they've been heard. And now
mm,
that's generally there's also, I mean, for all of us, change even when it seems like it's good change, can be
mhm.
uncomfortable because it's
Yeah,
new and we're getting out of what is our comfort zone. And
yeah.
so sometimes even when people understand, yeah, there's a problem and there's a need to change, but I don't want to change because I'm really comfortable doing it this way. So,
Mm,
and I think when it comes to that kind of a scenario, you have listened to them, you've understood where they're coming from, you've all kind of agreed on what the problem is, and there's still some resistance, then really it's a matter of empathy, working with them, trying to understand. There was there's a quote that I really like that says, "Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care." And a lot of that
yes.
comes from listening and trying to understand the problem from their perspective. And sometimes that's not just a one and done kind of meeting. It's meeting regularly with people and really understanding and help them to remember that you are working on this together, that their feedback is valuable, and that they are part of the solution. Because I think that can also derail things when it's like, yeah, I listened to them and now I'm moving forward with what I think is the solution. And I'll keep you updated when we're done with the solution. And then everybody's like stressed out and like,
Yeah.
where is this going? I don't know. So I think it's a regular engagement. You've identified the problem. Now, all of you stakeholders who are involved, you're going to help me craft the solution to the
Mhm.
problem. And then what happens when you do that is you then create advocates for the change. So maybe for me, some of the changes that we made involved faculty. Well, we had 500 and some faculty. So we just had a group of 3 or 4. And then they go back to the faculty senate and say, hey, there's this great thing that we're doing. And so their peers are advocating for this change. And that kind of helps it move forward. But I think using empathy in those moments where they have been involved, but they're still struggling with that very human need to have control of our lives. And now
Mhm.
my system is changing. Being there for them to help them to make that transition, I think is really important.
Hmm. I've heard a phrase, Brandon, that says resistance is information. Have you heard of that before? What do you
No, I've
think
never
about
heard that one. That's great though.
resistance is information? What comes to your mind when you hear that sentence there?
Um, I mean, it's anything. It's like a uh, it could be like a warning flag or something that comes up. Like there are different things that can happen in our lives that that help us to pay attention. I think when things are not going smoothly, when there is resistance, I mean that's a big hello. Like pause for a second and and listen to me. I've got some information here to share with you that you're not getting. And I actually had that experience in working in higher ed, times when you just feel this frustration because you didn't feel like people were hearing or understanding what information you're trying to give them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you can sense that frustration in people, that's a really good indicator that hey, they've got some information for you that they want to share and they want you to consider.
You know, what I appreciate about this conversation was how you started out, where you were talking about going back and asking the team questions, right? How can we get to yes, or how can we find the solution? And, you know, when I saw the phrase that resistance is information, you know, I was thinking to myself, man, that resistance gives the leader the perfect opportunity to listen. Where is this resistance coming from? What's at the root of it, right? You know, listening doesn't mean that you have to abandon the transition or the change that's going to happen, but listening helps to give you some serious keys as to what the journey is going to be like, and also gives you an opportunity to hear what's important to your team, the ones who are going to actually be doing the work or journeying with you through the change, which is so key and important. I had a recent situation where we had to make a change, and I literally could see. Well, first I could sense. Sometimes you look at the body language, right, or the way something is communicated. You're like, oh, okay, this is not sitting too well. And when I began to ask some questions, I realized what was at the root of it was my team was tired, and they saw the change as, uh-oh, here now is something else additional that I have to do, and I'm not going to get a break. So when I realized, wait a minute, they're tired, it really didn't have much to do with what they were going to do. It was taking care of them so that they were in the best state to be able to do it. But had we not sat down, not asked any questions, if, you know, we weren't aware that there was this body language, there was this quiet resistance that was happening, it could have been disastrous.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let me ask you this question, right? Leaders often know where they want an organization to go, but the people closest to the work may experience the change very differently. How do we close that gap?
Um, I think just from my experience, the best thing is to operate from a place of humility as a
Mm,
leader. And because sometimes we think, because of the way that we perceive the problem, we think that we have the solution, but we're often missing a lot of information. And so I think closing the gap is really, it's, I mean, it's important to go and listen to those individuals at all levels of the organization. So I completed a Lean Six Sigma certification, a black belt certification, and a big part of that
mhm,
was understanding the needs of the customer, and that requires humility. And the customer of a process can be anybody along the journey of that, wherever that process takes place or that big change takes place. So I think having the humility to listen and understand the people who are all part of the process is probably like one of the most important things that a leader can do. Because I have seen so many times when poor changes have rolled out, and a lot of it comes because they felt like they had the answer,
mm,
and they were ready to move forward with it, and they were pretending to listen, but
mercy.
but they were not really hearing and understanding the perspective and the needs and the wisdom of those who had been operating the process or
Mm,
involved in the process at all levels.
mm. They were hearing, but they were not listening.
Correct. Yes.
Leaders. Leaders,
Hmm.
that's stomp your foot, point to really think about and to consider. We hear our people, but are we really listening to them? And Brandon, I heard somebody say that the same letters in silence are also in listen. Just different. So
Hey, yeah, that's awesome.
absolutely. So I've heard you mention a couple of times this word humility. And I think that is a word that as leaders we have to be aware of, and we have to be willing to courageously be humble, right? So let me ask you this question, because humility oftentimes is tied to another word called trust. So what role does trust play in driving change, particularly when leaders cannot guarantee, ouch, what the outcome is going to look like? And that happens more times than not, right? So what role does trust play in driving change when leaders cannot guarantee what the outcome will look like?
Yes, so I think trust is critical in every operation of a business, especially when it comes to change. And I
Mhm,
think that's something that doesn't just happen overnight. It's
mhm,
something that takes time,
mhm,
and it takes a leader who, again, back to the humility, they're willing to be humble and say, I don't really know all the answers. I have some ideas, but I'm also looking to you all, and establishing a culture where where change and failure become the norm, but they're not, but if done well, and you can help your people to understand that anytime a change is going to happen, I am going to come to you because I want to hear your perspective, and I'm really going to listen to that perspective, take it to heart, and integrate it and involve you in the process of creating the solutions that we all move forward to, or move toward together. And I think if people know that and they really believe that, then anytime you bring up, hey, we're looking at these changes, people aren't going to freak out, because they're going to know that they're going to trust that moving forward, you are going to involve them in the process. They're going to be in the loop. They're going to be part of the solution. And that if things fail, that's okay. And it encourages people as well, not just to wait for the leader to come and say, we're going to make change,
mhm.
but also hopefully inspires in them to make changes within their own operations, and to
Yes.
not be afraid to try and to fail.
Mhm,
And I think without establishing that
mhm,
culture within whatever your organization is you work at,
mhm,
then you're going to often hit roadblocks when you try to implement change. And it
mhm.
takes time. It takes going through a couple of changes and demonstrating that
Yes.
you do this well and you involve them, before people are going to not cringe anytime
Mhm.
change is mentioned or alluded to, or it's going to take place.
Yeah.
So yeah, but trust, absolutely critical in trying to drive effective change and do it in a way that people are excited for the change and they're happy to be a part of it.
I love that. It's so important for us as leaders not to pretend we know everything. Another one of my leadership mantras that I try to model is, I tell my team, I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be progressive. There has to be space to make mistakes. There has to be space to learn and to grow. Like, that's how we learn and grow. If every mistake or everything that is deemed a failure, not successful, didn't meet mission, if everything is major and critical, life is over, and man, that becomes a very toxic environment, right? But you want your team to be able to feel as though they're going to do their best, but if they make a mistake, we're going to hold each other accountable, and we're going to figure this out together. And so as leaders, it's important, leaders, you're not perfect. Don't try to be perfect. Seek to be proficient, right? Seek to model excellence, but not perfection. So I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just thinking of change and this idea of failure, that if you can establish that culture as well, because a lot of times I've been involved in change where the senior leaders come out and they're like, we're going to make this change, and it starts moving forward and it's a mess, and you try everything you can and it's just not working, and they continue to say, well, we have to make it work, like we have to make it work, and you're sitting there thinking, like from an accounting perspective, there's a principle called a sunk cost. And that is like you purchase this thing for your company and you're investing in it. And after a certain amount of time, if you start to realize, yeah, like this is not going in the right direction, it's not working, rather than investing more time and more energy and more money into this, you accept, hey, you know what? We spent the money on it. It really hurts to like just kind of pull the plug, but we can tell we're moving in a direction where this is not working. Let's call it a failure. Let's call it a learning experience. And then let's go ahead and we're going to try different next time. And so I think having that attitude is really important. And it gives people confidence that I can try, I can fail. And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to be forced to make it work, to fit the square peg in the round hole. I can say, hey, this isn't working. We've given it our everything we can. We tried everything possible. It's not working. Now we're going to try the next plan. Let's move on with it.
I like that. And as you said that, I hear excitement in your voice. I love that. It's very motivating. So here's the next piece though. Change fatigue is real, right? How can we as leaders continue moving an organization forward when our people are tired of the next initiative or the next restructuring or the next new priority? How can we continue to move our team forward when they're fatigued?
Yeah, well, and I think it goes back to developing that culture, because change fatigue is real, but also excitement over change can also be real. And it goes back to just, is it done right? What's the culture? And are you changing things that everybody agrees are important to change? Because I've found that and this is kind of how I feel too. Like if there's something that I perceive as a problem, like I want it fixed, I want it changed. But if there's something that I don't perceive as a problem, then I don't want it changed, and I don't want to invest my time and energy in fixing it, because I don't think it's a problem. So why am I going to invest time and energy in it? And then if somebody forces me to invest time and energy on something and I never perceive it's a problem, then it's exhausting and it's super frustrating, because I've got other things that I want to focus my time on that I feel are important. So I think addressing that fatigue is really about changing the way that you change things and creating a culture of change and encouraging people to change appropriately. And the reality, like when we back in the beginning, we talked about change is constant. And that I think we get used, we all like to control things. We like to have things operate the way we want them to operate, which is just human nature. But the reality, nature is that things are constantly changing. So I think it's really about helping to establish a culture where those two things are the norm, allowing flexibility and freedom for people to craft things the way that they want to, so they feel like they have some semblance of control, but also helping to everybody feel comfortable and excited about good change, and helping to establish this expectation that change, when done at our organization, will be done well. And we commit to that, and helping people to understand that. Because I think if you can do that, you can move past change creates fatigue to change is exciting, because anytime change happens, I know and I understand the problem and I'm involved in the solution. Or if it doesn't even have anything to do with me, then that's totally fine, because I don't really care.
I love that. And leaders, do you hear the excitement in Brandon's voice, right? Sometimes the way we communicate things makes a difference as well. There are going to be times where our team does not feel excited, but if they know that, this is not a necessarily life is over, major critical, the mission may be important and they need to be successful, but if they understand that there will be opportunities to grow, to rebuild, to figure it out, to try again, that makes a big difference. And so we want to invite you to just take some time right now to just stop and assess how is the culture in the organization that you are leading when it comes to change. Does your team feel courageous enough to walk with you, to take the bold steps, even if multiple things are changing at the same time. Communication is so key. So, Brandon, as we turn the corner on this conversation, I'm going to invite you to speak directly to us. There are leaders that are listening and watching right now that know that change is necessary. Yet today, right now, as they're listening and watching, we're hesitant to initiate the change. What's the first courageous step that you would encourage us to take?
So the first courageous step, I think when it comes to change, is kind of what we talked about in the beginning. Try to figure out this change that you're about to make. What problem is it trying to solve, or
Mm,
what opportunity is it creating? And then
mhm,
sit down with all your people, sit there and make a list of, with this change, who all is going to be impacted by this
mm,
change. Once you
mhm,
have that list, get those people together, get them to all agree with you, or you agree with them on what
mhm,
that problem is. And once you get to that point and everybody agrees on the problem, I think you'll see magic happen when you involve them then in crafting the solution. You'll find that it won't be painful, it'll be exciting, and it'll be
mhm,
fun for everyone to be a part of building something amazing
mhm,
that they can look back and say, wow, I was a part of that. So
mhm,
that would be my encouragement for the first step, that to take when you feel like there is a change that it's necessary, and to have the humility to, if you present your problem out there and everybody disagrees with you that it's a problem, have the humility to say, okay, well, maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it's my problem. And
mm,
I need to now turn around and see things a little bit differently. And I think if you do that, you will see incredible things happen in your organization with your people. And I think you'll get to a point where everybody feels like change is a good thing, not something to be afraid of, but something
mm,
to embrace and to be excited about at your
mm.
organization.
I love it. I love it. Mobilizers, as you're listening, again, we want to ask you what's resonating with you. Go ahead, whether you're watching this right now with us or whether you're watching on the replay, go ahead and start typing in the comment section what's resonating with you as you're listening to Brandon today. So, Brandon, we have a new segment here in Mobilizing, in our Transformation Station Leadership podcast. It's called the Mobilizing Minute. And this is where we move from conversation to action, and we give our guests an opportunity to leave some practical wisdom. So I'm going to ask you two questions and then just answer them for us, okay? This is a 1 minute. So first, we're talking about legacy. And here it goes. Finish this sentence. The leaders who drive change well are the ones who.
This is for me.
Yes, this is for you.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was for me or the audience.
Yes, for you.
The leaders who drive change well are the ones who listen to their people
Mm,
and have the humility to accept when they're wrong.
I love that. I love that. Listen to their people and accept when they're wrong. Okay. Question number two. Word of the season. What is one word you believe leaders should carry into this season and why?
I would say love.
Mm,
And the reason why is because if you love the people who are part of your team, part of your organization,
mhm,
then you're operating from a place where their interest is your interest. And when that happens, I think amazing things happen within your organization because you care very much about them. You want them to be happy, you want them to be successful, and you want the organization to be successful.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that wisdom with us. So, listen, I know that there are leaders that are listening and watching that want to find out more, that want to engage with you. What's the best way for them to do so?
So the best way would be to check out my website, brandonkowallis.com.
Mhm,
Also, check out my book, Cursing at Mountains,
mhm,
which takes a lot of the wisdom that I've gained in my years of working in a leadership position, as well as I do a lot of cave exploration and have been some really dangerous, risky scenarios, and I just talk about how to deal with some of those situations, both underground and in the boardroom. And it's done in a really fun way. Follows a character named Chris whose life is falling apart. There's a story that teaches these concepts. So those are probably the best venues. I would love to hear from anyone out there. If you have questions, you can reach out to me on my website or any of my social media accounts, which are on my website.
Yes, I love it. All right. So listeners and viewers, you know how we do here. We love to support our guests. So you see the description. The link is here on the screen. You also will see it in the description box. I want you to go ahead and click on that link. You've got to go get the book. Okay. You got to get the book. I also am inviting you to reach out to Brandon. Let him know that you saw that you heard this particular episode. Let him know what has resonated with you and ask him questions, right? He has many experiences that I think will be very valuable for you to be able to tap into. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today. It has absolutely been a delight to have this pivotal conversation about change. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
My pleasure. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Well, listen, we are thrilled today. Let me tell you why. Number one, we want to tell Brandon thank you because he reminded us that driving change is not simply about creating a new direction. It's about helping people to move with us. And I know that today's conversation reminded you, as it reminded me, that effective change requires, remember these words, trust, humility, listening, and courage. You know, speaking of that, I'm going to invite you to have the courage to join the Mobilizing with Impact community. On this coming Sunday, we have our Mobilizing Prayer Circle. You know, we meet once a month as leaders to come together. We have a devotion, we have prayer requests, testimonies, and then we pray together and we're gone. But we've been doing this is about 30, 35 minutes once a month. As leaders, we have seriously been seeing so many miracles take place. And so I invite you to join us. How can you join us? It's very simple. Right now, you can go to mobilizingwithimpact.com, become a member. Go to the events tab. In the events tab, you will find the Zoom link. And then on this coming Sunday, you will be able to join us. And we invite you to join us every month. I also want to remind you that every month we have a theme. You know, in the month of August, the theme is leading through grief and leading through loss. Many of us are experiencing loss. I created a framework for you. It's a resource guide. This resource guide is complimentary. It's the Hope Framework. And so I want to invite you to tap into the resources that Mobilizing with Impact has for you. You can get this particular framework. All you have to do is go to mobilizingwithimpact.com. When you go there, go to the Learning tab, and you will see this framework. Previously, we had the Anchor framework. Now we have the Hope framework. These are resources for you to utilize for your leadership journey, as well as sharing it with someone else. And so finally, on that note, I want to remind you, your copy of A Greater Force Than Failure, Intentional Time with God, it's waiting for you. Where is it? It's waiting for you on Amazon.com. You can go there right now and purchase it. It's for anyone who has ever made a mistake. Come on, that is all of us. If you've ever made a mistake and said to yourself, "Oop, I acknowledge the mistake, but now how do I move forward?" Well, it takes you through a 4-step self-guided journey to do just that. And as always, I want to invite you, don't just get a copy for yourself, but you really want to go through the journal with someone else. So get a copy for another coworker, a friend, a family member, and go through it together. And as always, you can contact me. I love to hear from you so that I can share the journey with you. You know, again, I just want to say thank you to Brandon. I really want to thank him because he reminded us of so many pivotal things. Change becomes sustainable when people that we serve, that we lead, when they understand the mission, when they trust our leadership and believe they have a meaningful role in what comes next. Thank you so much for sharing your day, your afternoon, your morning with me for another episode of Transformation Station Leadership Podcast. So until next time, keep growing, keep leading, keep mobilizing change, and keep transforming from the inside out.